Cartoons are cartoons. We know that they're not real, so it's harder to get scared by them. But the endless options presented by animation also allow for characters who aren't exactly scary, but might just be scarier than scary. They're creepy. Once you see them, you can't unsee them, and they stay with you for years. Today, we're going to be taking a look at some of the all-time creepiest villains in cartoon history. So beware! The Smurfs may not seem like the place where you'd find one of the creepiest villains not only in cartoons, but in any story ever. Gargamel is a grouchy old wizard who started out wanting to use Smurfs as an ingredient in his alchemical recipe for gold. But after being strung along and foiled again and again by these little blue beings, his motivations become even more sinister. He just wants to destroy them. He goes to all sorts of outrageous lengths to eradicate the Smurfs, but none of them are creepier than his creation of Smurfette. Before Smurfette, there were no female Smurfs. It was an all-male society. Gargamel thought that inserting a female into the mix would shake things up in the heterosexual Smurf village. He decides to create a Smurfette who will capture all the little blue hearts in the village, but eventually lead to the fall of the Smurf. Here's what he puts in the cauldron to make her. Sugar and spice, but nothing nice. A dram of crocodile tears, a peck of bird brain, the tip of an adder's tongue, half a pack of lies, white of course, the slyness of a cat, the vanity of a peacock, the chatter of a magpie, the guile of a vixen, and the disposition of a shrew. And of course, the hardest stone for her heart. So Gargamel, this wizard in the fictional world of the Smurfs, has created a being who embodies every negative female stereotype with the intention of driving their whole society to the point of lusty chaos. It doesn't really get any worse than that, except it kinda does when the Smurfs find her too ugly and Papa Smurf gives her a makeover. He adds one touch of Venus and moonbeams for light, and voila! She comes out blonde with her eyelashes fluttering and the Smurfs go nuts. The main villain from Captain Planet and the Planeteers is aptly named. Verminous Scum is a human-rat hybrid who just wants to watch the world burn. Or maybe it's more accurate to say that he wants to watch coal burn so that it will emit greenhouse gas emissions, change the climate, and kill off human beings. Who on earth would want such a thing? Well, Mr. Scum is part rat and, like full-on rats, can survive and even thrive in environments where humans might not, like sewers or post-apocalyptic wastelands. In Captain Planet, Gaia, aka Mother Earth, says that Scum and his posse of rat people thrive on pollution and have declared war on the environment. He's done everything from restarting defunct coal plants to putting a dangerous liquid into the water supply that gives people a disease called rat rot.
Wait till you taste my scummy brew.
All that is pretty plain to see, but what might be a little less obvious is that Verminous Scum was, for a time, actually played by Jeff Goldblum. For an actor of Goldblum's level to play the weirdest character in an already very strange show is surprising, but he does a good job. It comes as less of a surprise when you consider another iconic Goldblum role, The Fly. In that movie, he plays a scientist who builds an imperfect teleportation machine. It can only teleport inanimate objects like a brick or a lamp, but when living things get involved, things don't go as well. In a fit of drunken jealousy one night, Goldblum tries to teleport himself, not knowing that there's a housefly with him in the pod. You can probably guess what happens next. For those of you who don't know Reboot, it might be time to acquaint yourselves. It's the first show ever to be animated completely on computers, and it shows. The art style is dated but very unique, and all the characters are pretty cool representations of something about computers. Hexadecimal is the best example. She is the queen of chaos, and her face, one of those classic theater masks, switches constantly between static expressions as if she's flipping some kind of computer emotion switch. It's chaotic, but but also very controlled. Similarly, her name comes from a numeral system that is often used in computers. The hexadecimal system is base 16, whereas the system we humans use, decimal, is base 10. What that means is that after 10, we've got to start using letters A, B, C, D, E, F. The hexadecimal system is chaotic and outrageous to a lot of people, but just like the villain Hexadecimal, it's tightly controlled. One hexadecimal digit is 4 bits, and 2 hexadecimal digits equals 1 byte. Hexadecimal, the villain, uses all sorts of things that, in computing, are just normal or foundational concepts, but she warps them into horrifying moments of chaos. Like this episode, where she decides to become an artist, trapping people inside of MS Paint. The Lich might just have the simplest motivations on this list. He doesn't want to trap people in art, turn everyone into rats, or turn Smurfs into gold. He just wants everything to die. In fact, he is the manifestation of the death of all things. From the day we're born, we're all heading to our demise, and the Lich exists to remind everyone in Adventure Time of that fact. But unfortunately, he's not content to be a simple reminder of everyone's mortality. He actually goes out of his way to try and end all life as Finn and Jake know it. In one episode, he goes inside the body of Billy, the ancient warrior. His plan is to sneak his way to Presto, a being who grants wishes and to wish for mass extinction. He does that, but luckily, Finn goes after him and alters the wish. This is pretty much the Lich's lot in life. He tries to destroy humanity, but at the last second, he messes it up. Eventually, he messes it up so bad that he gets turned into a giant, bumbling baby who Finn and Jake names Sweet Pea. Although he's in the Sweet Pea body, that doesn't mean we've seen the last of the Lich. It's still technically possible that he'll pop back out one day. Another aptly named villain, Koh the Face Stealer, is undoubtedly one of the scariest in Avatar: The Last Airbender. His body is some type of worm centipede thing, he's got countless sharp legs, and he slides around like a snake, blinking his one eye. Within that eye, there's nothing resembling an iris or pupil, unless you count the eyes on one of Koh's many stolen faces. He can switch between any face that he's stolen by blinking his face eye, and the effect is haunting, especially when he's in the middle of a sentence. But how does he steal faces? Well, it's kind of like Medusa. With Koh, you're allowed to look at him. How would we see all those faces if we couldn't? But if you show even a tiny bit of emotion, Koh will snatch the face right off your head and keep it for himself. That's why Aang is acting so stone cold in this clip. The only other person I can imagine going up against this monster is Kobe. Carnage wasn't always the famous symbiote-infected villain that we know today. He began as an unhappy kid named Cletus Cassidy who got the short end of the stick one too many times. He witnessed some horrible things, like his dad ending his mom's life, but he wasn't so innocent either. As a child, he pushed his grandmother down the stairs, a fall from which she would never recover. After being orphaned and bouncing around between different institutions for his whole childhood, Cassidy grew up to become a serial killer. Eventually, he was caught and sent to jail where, wouldn't you know it, he shared a cell with Eddie Brock, aka Venom. Cassidy didn't believe that Brock was Venom, and one night he tried to stab him, but the symbiote came out of nowhere and intervened, breaking Eddie Brock out of jail, but also birthing a baby symbiote, which made its way into Cassidy's bloodstream. Needless to say, combining that already messed up mind of Cletus Cassidy with a super powerful alien goo did not do anything good. In the comics, he wreaked havoc on the Civvy and needed not just Spider-Man, but also the Fantastic Four and Venom to stop him. This year, he'll be appearing in the new Venom movie, played by none other than Woody Harrelson. No one has ever thought of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles as being scary, but Krang, one of the show's villains, is definitely creepy. Over the years, he's taken all sorts of different forms, but his creepiest by far is in the original show. Krang himself is a pink little bubblegum blob of a brain. He's very smart and hosts himself in a robot. In the original show, he made the strange decision of living inside the belly of this peachy-colored, cone-headed humanoid robot who he controls with 2 old-school arcade joysticks. Why is Fred freaky? For one, there's a smile. No matter how nice a person is, no matter what they do, if they smile like that, they're creepy. And Freaky Fred smiles like that all the time. But it gets worse when you realize what he's smiling about. Hair. Freaky Fred's one desire is to cut off and shave hair. It doesn't matter if the victim is a human, a ball of hair, or Courage the Cowardly Dog, Fred wants their hair. He doesn't care how they feel, even though he knows that's naughty. The most famous Powerpuff Girl villain is, of course, Mojo Jojo. But even though he's evil, he's also a sympathetic character at times. Not like him. Him is just straight up deranged. He's a melange of Satan himself, a lobster, and different human cartoon tropes that all come together to seem just plain strange. Although, looking back, certain aspects of the character may seem a little dated. The creep factor of taking molten baths is still undeniable to this day. Like Harley Quinn, the Scarecrow used to be a civilian interested in psychology. He was a professor, interested in studying the effects of fear. But he was fired after he started experimenting on students with his patented fear gas. The character has gone through some redesigns over the years, with some scarier than others, but the look of the Scarecrow isn't what's worst about him. What's really awful are the effects of his fear gas, which cause you to hallucinate your worst fear. Often, it's something you didn't even realize you were scared of. Jeez, hope you're not about to go to bed. Who do you think the scariest cartoon or even non-cartoon villain is? Are there any we missed? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to The Binger.